and was appointed by President Biden and confirmed by the U.S. Senate as a federal district court judge for the District of Massachusetts, sitting in the Worcester Federal Court. Previously, she had served for nearly 14 years in the Massachusetts State District Court, including a term as the first justice of the Air District Court. She served on numerous trial court committees, including judicial education, race and ethnic fairness, and Supreme Judicial Select Committee on Implicit Bias. Judge Guzman has additionally participated in numerous professional associations and is presently an active faculty member of the National Judicial College. Her legal career included both private practice and public service, where she was a senior trial attorney for the Worcester office of CPCS and the Public Defender Division. Judge Guzman is a graduate of Boston University School of Law, class of '89 with honors, and Clark University with high honors, magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. She's a resident of Worcester and has a long history of service on numerous local boards, commissions, and other nonprofits, including Dismas House of Central Mass, the Worcester Youth Center, the Worcester County Commission on the Status of Women, Creative Hub Worcester, and Worcester Business Development Corporation. BFFs, it's my great honor to welcome to the podium today's guest speaker, the Honorable Margaret Guzman, as the first person in the state heritage to serve as a federal judge in Massachusetts. Yes.
My friends would call me busy. There is kind of a theme to my nonprofit work. It started when the Dismas House, and if you are unfamiliar with it, it's an organization. They have a house on Richard Street down by Clark University. They now have 3 additional houses. They take men and women who are coming out of prison and help reorient them to society. And it's a wonderful program, a charter program, and it's very successul. They've helped change people's lives. They reunite them with their families. They get them job skills. It was my client base because I was a public defender. That's what drew me to it. But what kept me there was their commitment to community service and to recognizing that the worst thing you've ever done was not to find the person that you can be. And it's a little bit of a story that I had familiarity with, not just as a public defender, but I grew up in a big family, and I was born in Worcester. There were 8 kids. Both of my parents were people who had origins in immigrant resettlement to the United States. My mother's whole family came from Ireland, from the famine. My father, his mother was from Germany, his dad was from Mexico. He was born outside of this country, and when he came here, even though he was an educated man, he had to change the pronunciation of his name. My name is Guzman, if I step south of Florida. But he needed to become Guzman in order to get a job, even though he had degrees. And so this was the experience that I grew up in. We were just a very, what I thought, typical family. But in the 70s, in the topsy-turvy 70s, my parents divorced and we became poor overnight. My dad moved, and we went from being just a regular family to being people who had food stamps and had to get free lunch. The first time I had an experience that shaped who I have become was when I was 10 and went to my school and had to tell the lunch lady that I was free lunch. That the day before we were not. I said free lunch as if a 10-year-old had anything to do with that, and she yelled it out so everyone could know that I was poor or something. Or I'm not sure. I don't know what would make an adult want to shame a 10-year-old. But that was not the first time I felt like I wanted to fight for something that wasn't right. It was just the one that really stuck out in my mind. And I've been fighting bullies my whole life and my whole career. I believe in justice. And so this isn't going to be a serious speech because I wanted to say, there are things that shape us that aren't always in the forefront when we're making decisions, life decisions. I think I'm speaking to at least some of the women in this room that some of the life decisions and the roads that I took were not formulated by me. They were a response to circumstances, whether it was a bad marriage or it was, denial of benefits or a denial of a certain job. We go a road, and some women have taken really curvy roads. But it's the curve that brings us to the most extraordinary places, and not the road that we chart. I mean, if we're 15 and we're talking about what we want to be when we grow up, it often, when you're 35 or 55 or on, 63, those things you thought about were not the ones that were the most important things in your life, if you even achieved them. The most important events in my life were the ones that I could not have scripted, and they certainly weren't ones that I would have asked for. I didn't go to college right away. I was a good high school student, but we didn't have any money. And I wanted to be an actress, and it really wasn't working out as far as, the plan. So I started working. I worked at a bank, as a bank teller. That failed when I pulled the false alarm without knowing it. I was thinking, oh my God, someone pulled the false alarm. Look, there's all those police in the So they put me in the mortgage department where I just had to process payments. And then I was really clever, and then they put me in the origination department, and then I did mortgage work for years. I worked in every job I had, I worked, and I was clever and I was good, and they would elevate me until, I just hit a ceiling. You can only go so far with a high school diploma. And when I was 25 years old, I had an experience, and I realized that I just needed to go to college because I wanted to be a lawyer. I just knew it. I went with a friend whose son got in very serious trouble, and he had a public defender, and she was beside herself, and I went with her, and I saw this man, and I was thinking, public defenders, they're drunkards, they get booze hounds, bad lawyers, they're old. He was young, he was smart, he was committed, he was on top of her son's case, and he was there to help. And it was a light bulb. I have to be there. That's what of course, it got a little bit to get there. So I realized that I had been just working toward that thing. And I went to college, and then I went to law school, and I became the lawyer I wanted to be. But in between, when I put myself through college and law school, I worked at a lighting company, helping put installations in. I worked as a marinade, one of the house cleaning places. I worked on a dump truck. My brother had a friend who would pay me cash $20 an hour. And at the end of the summer, I was able to throw a dishwasher by myself into the truck. I mean, it was a fabulous job. I mean, all kinds of jobs. And those summers, I worked for a tech company that placed me at a business that used to be over there in Westboro. Some of you work in that near the 495, and it was the digital corporation. That's right. So when I call myself a barren spinster because I don't have any children and I got rid of my husband. So but I do have maternal experiences, and I think about when I worked in digital. I worked in the executive travel department, and I would go for the summer, and I worked for a temp agency. I'd work for them. But I ended up working with all these executives who, were so full of themselves. It was all men, it was all white men, it was all, very demanding and very full of themselves, and so happy to spend digital's money till they put them out of business. And there was this one vice president who used to like to hang around with all the ladies. He'd flirting with us and talking with us. And I was kind of a smart ass and a hot shit, and I could put, would give it right back to him. And one day, someone complimented him on a jacket, and he said, "Oh, do you like it?" "Yeah, I just got this." And I said, "Oh, how long did it take your wife to pick out that for you?" He was so offended. He said to me, "I meant to tell you, for a fat girl, you don't sweat much." Oh. And I said, "Well, first of all, you're fat, I'm not fat." I mean, what is he going to do, fire me? I didn't work for them. But that was said to me at a company by a person who was an executive while I was doing my job. Ladies. Right? Okay. He's the lunch lady. Right? He's no better than the lunch lady. And by the way, I wonder what he's doing today now that he put his company out of business, right? We don't get to define, we think we do. We don't get to define our life. But we do get to control how we respond to the things that happen in our life. I was raised by an incredible woman who, when her whole family, she was of 8, her father died, she was born 2 weeks after the Depression, in the stock market crash in 1929. Her father died 3 years later of pneumonia. There were 8 kids in her family in the midst of the worst poverty this country has ever known. She was the most positive, upbeat person. She loved her childhood. She talked about, she saw her life with happiness. That's how she raised us. You don't wrap yourself around your sadness. Make your sadness go away by just looking at life for what it can give you. And that was how she raised us. I was raised by a woman who was refused to let people define her, and she told us that you get to define you, not them. I mean, I would think about her when I was in court and facing a very hostile judge or a lying witness, and then I would be thinking about how she was always such a lady. But she never got taken advantage of. And she did it with lipstick, and she never wore jeans or sneakers. She always wore a bra. She never hung around. She didn't do coffee stuff with the ladies in the neighborhood. The bra thing was funny because when she was dying, I lived with her until she died, she had to go to the hospital, and it was a snowstorm, and I called the ambulance to come down, and she had been in bed, and the female EMT came in, and my mother said, "I want you to go get my bra and get my white blouse." And I said, "Ma, you're going to an emergency room. You're going to go." She said, "I'm not going unless I'm dressed properly." And the EMT lady said to me, "Just tell the guys how to back up. I'll take care of this situation." I mean, that was my mother right till before she died. How could I be anything but this? How could I be anything but someone who enjoyed what she did and did it for a purpose, had a lot of fun along the way, made wonderful, wonderful friends, and I was open to those curves in the road. I didn't want to be a judge. I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was a lawyer, and I was a good lawyer. But when the time was right, when that opportunity was there, I let myself be open to it. That was in 2009. But I was ready for something. I was ready for something. In my late 50s, I knew, 57, I said, I've got to do another job. I knew there was something else for me. And this is the other bend in the road. I had a wonderful friend, a wonderful man, intelligent, we share the same profession, a good friend. I count on him for advice. And I remember when I was 59 telling him how I was applying for jobs that presidents of colleges, and just kind of crazy, because I knew there was something I needed to do. And I said to him, I just know there's a job out there for me, and he said, there's one man who I think loves me as a friend. Who would hire a 59-year-old woman? And as soon as he said it, he regretted it. But he spoke the truth. He spoke the truth. That's what people think. They think we're like washed up with like rocks on the sand, That was a reality. Now I realized I was too young. I had to be 62 before I got that job. So apparently he was right in the sense that I was not old enough. That bend in the road, it didn't stop me from pursuing. It just made me realize that the confidence that I would need for a change had to come from within me. And I had to be open when the opportunity presented itself, and it did. I didn't initiate the federal judgment. I got a call, and I said, yeah, this is a prank call. No, thank you. They'll never pick me. Because I was saying I was going to hire, a 59-year-old woman. But I did pursue it, and it has turned out to be that opportunity that I waited for and was ready for, and when it was there, it has been where I think I was meant to go. My brand of being a judge, my born in Worcester, the only one, even the judge that was sitting there that retired, that I got his job, he worked in Worcester as a judge, but he wasn't born in Worcester. I'm a Worcester girl, and through, and love the city. And it has been a joy. I'm celebrating my first year anniversary in just a couple of weeks, and it has been an incredible joy, and I'm proud to be able to, to contribute still to my city and my community. And I'm having a good time while I'm doing it. When we asked at the table, what's the one thing that you want to do that you haven't done? And I fill in the blank. When the opportunity presents itself to me, I'm going to take it if it feels right to do it. What I do find the greatest joy that I have now is speaking to women and telling them that if you're born of a certain generation, we're always overcoming the doubts in order to move that next step. We always have to overcome it. Most of us overcome it, but many don't. Many are shocked by it. They find that is a hole. They're stuck in that hole. They can't get out of that hole because they've allowed somebody else to define what it is their contribution. Those are people, if you know them, you have to put a hand out to hold them up. That's our obligation. I want to be that person. I want to be that friend, that coworker, and that community member. And so I was so pleased to be able to have an opportunity. I met Karen, because I was with one of my favorite women friends. She's a professional. She's part of this organization, Liz Clemency, and these are people who I love. I love watching how they redefined their own destiny, their own future, despite difficulties and bumps along the way. There are some of you here who are young and who haven't really had those same kind of experiences. If this sounds like science fiction, it's not. But I do know that you are why we do what we do. I have a ton of nieces, and great nieces, and great nieces. And I want them to look at me as I looked at my mother. Someone who looked at life as something to be lived, not to be feared, and not to run away from. Opportunities. But also always remembering there is grace in accepting that you are a part of your destiny, but you didn't create your destiny. I'm a part of it. I want to put a hand out and hold them along with me. And you all have that same obligation to do that to other women, young women, women who are stuck, women who aren't stuck, but who don't believe in themselves. So, thank you for having me today. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice thing to do. It was kind of crazy last week, but it gave me a week to think about what I was going to say, so thanks for that. And I look forward to seeing you again at another event.
I just want to say, Margaret, there is one word that a French should describe you. Ladies, do you agree? A pistol. That's the actual word. Thank you so much for being with us. No, I love strong women. It's not easy to always be a strong woman, and it's okay not to be a strong woman, but you mentioned something that we talked about earlier. I'm also 62 years old, and I was talking to Carrie yesterday, or the day before. We were talking about growing up in the 1980s and starting our career, what that looked like, and we have lots of stories to share from that time, and a lot more positive, and I do not believe that we should just focus on some of those things that were challenges or difficult. But we're very excited about the new generation, and we hope that we open doors for some of you that are out there that are going to make this generation even greater today. So thank you for paving that way, Judge Guzman, because you are truly a pistol, and thank you for being with us.